All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Brandon Aiyuk in the middle of July remains unsigned. Davante Adams is unhappy with the Raiders. Could we make a deal? Could we play Let's Make a Deal? Well, let's play a three-way deal and have some fun. There was an interesting article written on Niners Web Zone about the possibility of Aiyuk and Davante being included in a trade. Let's talk a little bit about what that potentially could look like coming up next. First, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue you're going to find. And go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them that Krug sent you. And, of course, this video also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, along the Monterey Peninsula. Go say hi to my good friend Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264. Well, Aiyuk remains unsigned. Camp is a week or so away, middle of July. And John Opelt on 49er Web Zone is talking about a trade that would send Brandon Aiyuk for Davante Adams. Aiyuk says the Niners want him on the cheap. He doesn't want to be on the cheap. The Niners retain his services this year on the fifth-year option that guarantees him $14.1 million. Aiyuk's contention is that he deserves to be paid more, and I think everybody would agree with that. He's one of the premier wide receivers in the NFL. So there's no doubt he would command more than 14.1 on the open market, but he's not on the open market until next season, and potentially not for 3 seasons, because the Niners have the ability to franchise tag him for the next 2 years after this year if they so choose. Now, currently, Aiyuk is the 71st highest paid receiver in the NFL, so he's badly underpaid. The league's got 32 teams in the league. On average, every team's paying 2 receivers more than Aiyuk is slated to receive in 2024, despite the fact that Aiyuk was a second-team All-Pro. He deserves a big payday. I think everybody understands that. Himself, his teammates, the Niners. I think everybody understands that Aiyuk's due for a big payday. And his agent is negotiating with the Niners on a contract extension. They can't agree on a sticker price yet. What if they can't? What if they can't reach an agreement? What if the Niners play their card and say, you know what? We can't reach an agreement. We've got you on the 5th-year option at 14.1. How about you play at 14.1 this year? And then what if Aiyuk says, that's your move. That's fine. But I'm going to hold out. I'm going to hold out until the last day possible. I'll come in at the last day possible to make sure the year accrues. Other than that, I'm going to hold out. Well, if that's the case, then becomes a distraction. That becomes a disruption to the team's chemistry. And at that point, maybe the Niners would opt to trade Aiyuk away. Now, the Niners have Super Bowl aspirations. So trading Aiyuk for draft picks, for the most part, doesn't work. That doesn't improve the Niners situation this year. It doesn't get them closer to winning that 6th Super Bowl. It's not going to make Trent Williams happy. It's not going to make Nick Bosa or George Kittle happy. It's not going to make the fans happy. I mean, you could trade Aiyuk for the Patriots' number 1 pick, and that could be a top 5 pick next year. But you're not realizing that value until April of 2025, well after this year's Super Bowl race is determined. So if the Niners are going to trade Aiyuk, they want players. They want They might take a pick or 2, but they want players. Now, this is an interesting article on 49er Red Zone because they're talking about the possibility of trading Aiyuk to the Raiders for Davante Adams. And they're describing it as a win-win proposition. The Raiders would get a younger, ascending wide receiver. Aiyuk would get a contract extension commensurate with being a true number 1 receiver. The Raiders would rid themselves of Adams, who sounds like he's disgruntled. And there's a big push out of New York to get a reuniting of Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers in a Jets uniform. And so, it really is interesting. The Jets badly want Davante Adams. Sounds like the Raiders would love to get out from underneath Davante Adams and find a different receiver. Aiyuk. If the Niners did trade for Davante Adams, they'd be on the hook for his $17.5 million. His current contract with the Raiders runs through 2026. The final 2 years don't have any guaranteed money in them. So it would be like Niners would be exchanging a 1-year lease on Aiyuk for Devontae's contract. From a cap management deal, signing Aiyuk to a 4-year contract extension makes a lot of sense. The Niners could then convert his salary into a signing bonus and free up cap space that they could carry into next year to sign Brock. And the Niners could do the same same with Devontae if they decided to make the trade straight up, if it was Aiyuk for Devontae. So it's interesting. The Niners are saying in this article would likely need to add a sweetener to a deal for Devontae because the Raiders would be responsible for $23.5 million in prorated signing bonuses. And of course, we know the likely scenario is that the Niners find common ground with Aiyuk and that he stays here, and who knows what's going to happen with the Raiders and Davante Adams. But let's just say, for the sake of conversation, that there was a 3-way trade to be had here. You could make a pretty attractive trade here. Let's just say this would be the trade. The Raiders send Davante Adams to the Jets. Okay. And the Jets basically get Davante Adams. And what do they give? They give up a 4th-round pick, Malachi Corley, and Will McDonald, one of their backup edge rushers. So that's a pretty fair trade for Davante Adams from the Jets' perspective. Will McDonald's a good young edge rusher, but he hasn't established himself yet. Malachi Corley's a rookie receiver and a 4th-round pick. For Davante, that's probably fair. For the Raiders, in this 3-way scenario, they would actually wind up with Brandon Aiyuk, and they would be trading Davante Adams and tight end Michael Mayer and probably a 4th-round pick of their own. So they're moving Adams and Mayer in a 4th, and they're getting a younger receiver in Aiyuk. That seems like a win for the Raiders. The Niners could wheel themselves into this 3-way trade and wind up with Aiyuk going to the Raiders, and for their effort, they would get Malachi Corley from the Jets, Will McDonald from the Jets, Michael Mayer from the Raiders, and those 2 4th-round picks. That's attractive. You get a replacement receiver in Mayer, or in Corley, I should say. You get a young tight end in Mayer, who immediately becomes your tight end 2. You get a young edge rusher in Will McDonald, who now is right there to compete with Beal and Drake for, defensive end 4 and 5 role. And you get a couple of day 3 picks, and you get out from underneath Aiyuk's contracts, and you get a fresh start on the cap, and you got more money to spend on Purdy, and you get 3 young players that you can use right now: Malachi Corley, Will McDonald, Michael Mayer, and you get a couple 4th-round picks. And Aiyuk goes to the Raiders, and he gets paid like a number 1 receiver. And Davante goes to the Jets, and he's reunited with Rodgers, and everybody in Jets land is happy because they've got Davante now with Rodgers, and Raiders are happy because they've got a great young receiver in Brandon Aiyuk. And the Niners are happy because they don't have to pay Aiyuk. And you can add Malachi Corley to now you got a young wide receiver core that includes Pearsall and Cowing and Corley. Now you could probably re-sign Debo at the end of the year. You add McDonald to your defensive end group. You add Michael Mayer at tight end. May add a couple day 3 picks in 2025. I don't know about you, but to me, that sounds like win-win-win. Jets win, Raiders win, Niners win. Would you do it? I mean, John Opelt wrote the story, and he really wrote the story about trading Davante Adams for Brandon Aiyuk. I don't see how that works for the Niners. I really don't. They get an older receiver who also costs a lot of money. I don't think that doesn't have a relationship with Brock Purdy. I don't know that that's a win for the Niners. But if you could somehow make it a 3-way trade and now the Niners get Malachi Corley, and now the Niners get Michael Mayer, and maybe a guy like Will McDonald or Jermaine Johnson or something like that, some defensive end from the Jets, and a couple of day 3 picks in 2025, I think that's a win. I think that's absolutely a win. I think you can walk back into your locker room and say, guys, we just subtracted Aiyuk, but we added Malachi Corley, Will McDonald, Michael Mayer, and a couple of draft picks. We feel pretty good about where we're at. I think that would be enough to make me move. Do I want to trade for an old receiver in Devontae Adams, an older receiver? No, not necessarily. Do I love the idea of trading Aiyuk? Not necessarily. I think I'd rather pay him. But if by chance the Niners are playing super hardball, saying you play on the 5th-year option and we'll take care of you next year, and if by chance Aiyuk is going to hold out and say, hey, I'm going to show up when I'm damn well ready, then you might want to just sidestep the entire quagmire and see if you can put together a deal. And in this scenario, Malachi Corley, Will McDonald, Michael Mayer, and a couple day 3 picks might be a nice little haul for Aiyuk that might be worth it. It might actually be worth doing. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krueger Show. Thanks to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krueger Show on YouTube.